Hello, hello, this is Arcades, and welcome. We are back with another episode about the oil update. And I made a comment in the last update that was kind of. I think I'm officially going to put my foot in my mouth over that. I was referring to the refinery being easy and simple. Oh, I was wrong about that. Well, it is simple, it can be easy, but it's not that simple and easy. There's a lot of nuances that you can miss or confuse you, and I'm going to try to go over that and cover some of that. So, welcome as we speed past my refinery. One of three refineries, I think. No, two? I don't even know how many refineries I even attempted to build just to figure out the secrets. But yeah, here we are. Let's get into it. Refining oil. A bit of an overview. Okay, so the thing is, the refining part, the distilling. There we go. The distilling of the oil that you've collected from your facility. Okay, in the basic simple part of it, it is actually that simple. You just heat the oil up in a custom tank to 300 degrees, and it will turn to oil, or the oil will turn into diesel and jet. Then, due to the placement of the taps, well, I call them taps, but they are. Let's go actually look at them. Type in oil, brings them up. And fractional distillation port. These are what you need to pull out the oil, diesel, and jet fuel from the tank. Now you're like, wait, it's already oil. Why do we need to pull out oil? I will cover that in a bit. There is an actual practical use to this. But I digress. So, we're going to go over the basic process first. What you're doing in general. So, trying not to get too fast and ahead of myself here. Okay, so what it is, you've got your oil. You're going to deliver it now to you, either distilling it on the spot with an all-in-one rig, or maybe you're doing like I do. I have a drilling rig, and then I'm going to have a distillery rig, or a pumping station, which will might have a small refinery on it, or you just may, like another one I have is its sole purpose of refining. It's not even going to touch the well, because I actually like these structures just to put a building on. Well, in this case, sorry, I've just been sitting still on this. So this was my first design for a large-scale refinery. And this was a test bed. This was just seeing what I need to do to get things done. Now, this may turn out to be a personal choice on whatever you decide to do. Now, there's two ways to do this. Well, there's one way to do it, and that's a simple, straightforward process. You heat the oil to 300, it starts separating. It is the temperature of the tank overall. Now, here's the other thing. When I originally built this, and I hadn't figured everything out yet, my plan was for this structure here, is I had a pump jack up here. It would pump the oil. And in the center here, I originally had a bulk tank for oil storage. Then, under what I assumed was how it was going to work, is that the jet fuel, it would split, and then I would use the tap to put this tank, since it was so high, would become jet fuel. And since this tank was so low, it would become diesel. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. Because I wanted to separate them. And it was based off the height of the compartment. Now, officially, the custom tank is the sealed contained area. So, like, whenever you're building a custom gas tank, or you're just building your boat hull, instead of that empty area, or where you're putting your gasoline, it's a sealed contained space. That's your custom tank. So if you know what I'm referring to there, we're just want to work from there. Now, you get these, the temperature probe. Generally, you can just put them in the tank. So far, I haven't seen a big issue with where you place it at. From what I can tell, it pretty much gives you the average temperature of the tank overall. Not in any individual area, it just gives you the overall temperature of the tank. There might be other situations, like outside of a tank, where it will give you the temperature based on the space it's at. That is not what we're worrying about now. What we're worrying about is how it acts in the tank. So in this case, I have a few of them that are going out to these tiles. There was somebody I know, asked him to make some XML edited gauges for me. These larger dial versions of the dials. It's on the workshop. Just look up 3x3 dial. Mad for Mike Pro. He helped me out with that. Yeah, so I got these set up so I can read them from a distance. They were meant to go with my oil offload dock. They work great here because we can get away from this because this is kind of a loud setup. Now, the thing is, I've kind of been off tangent on all these little things. So you heat up the oil. It gets 300 degrees. It starts creating diesel and jet fuel in the compartment that is being heated. So when you go to heat it, that compartment gets both oil, will get both diesel and jet fuel at a rate, I believe I was told, at 12 liters a second being converted. So at an even balance of 1-to-1 between jet fuel and diesel. So that means when you go in here and watch it being separated, you will see diesel and jet fuel rising equally while you're losing 2 liters of oil. So now that I've explained it, let's actually show it happening so you can understand what is actually going on with those words and why that's significant. So this is going to take a bit. I will explain all this in a moment, but for right now, we're just worrying about showing the process of the actual heating. Now, they have released these furnaces. Right here, I'm using electric furnaces because they're easy to set up. They were great for testing, and so on and so forth. The other thing I'm going to get into is also tank fluid dynamics, because that's going to make a big difference on how fast you heat your fluid. Now, this is going to take a few minutes. I will be back with you when this gets up to temperature. This one, sorry. Okay, so as you see, we're at 300. Now, let's, obviously, been a little past 300. Okay, so what I want to show you is we're going to go inside. Oh, hold on. Do I have it there? Okay, here we go. So you see, I'm looking at a fluid meter. If you look at a fluid meter that's attached to your tank, it will show you this information. However, if you use just the logic node, all it's going to tell you is the fluid level or the capacity, depending on what you need. But if you actually want to see what's going on in the tank, this is how you would do it. Again, this is per compartment. Now, as you can see, this tank has a capacity of 134,500. 134,500. Now, if you look, it says the fluid level is 133. That's because some of it is, in the pipes and all of this, in the ports and such. but the oil level. Now, if you take those numbers, the diesel numbers, the jet fuel numbers, and the oil, and you add it all together, it will come out to be just around the same as the fluid level. Because it is currently actively converting it in the oil into diesel and jet fuel. Now let me show you what happens when you stop the heat. We're just going to stop everything. Okay, you see here, it is pretty much empty. There's no more oil in the tank. Yeah, there's 0.01, but for all intents and purposes, it's all processed, because you notice the diesel and jet fuel is not going up anymore. So here's the thing. You see the tank is at 307. So it's holding that temperature. Right? We're going to turn it off. Let it cool down for a moment. And you see, it's starting to cool down. It has now started cooling down, and it's turning the diesel and jet back into oil. So you actually have to make sure you maintain your temperature the entire time it's processing. What's worse is this has got to get heated back up because the exchanger cooled down in this setup. So it's getting back up to temperature, but the entire time it's going to be turning from diesel and jet fuel back into oil. So this is where it's important to note you got to have to make sure you have a proper setup to pull the stuff out of the system ASAP, because if you cool down like that, then you'll end up, burning. Well, not burning, but it'll just turn back into oil. And you'll basically be fighting against the system, waiting for the oil to get back up to temperature, turn back into jet and diesel. And as you can see, it's still going because the system's got to get heat back up, and this has got to get caught back up. And we lost 12 degrees out of that. So we got to wait for during that entire time, it's converting back into oil. So make sure you keep that in mind as you're building your setups. And yeah, so let's get back to the main part. This is about the jet fuel and diesel turning into oil. And as you saw, I spawned this straight from the bench. You see that one's full of jet fuel, that one's full of diesel. I open this up. The diesel starts emptying. As you can see, fluid meter, it says diesel. All that's being put in here is diesel right now. Alright? Let me close that. All we got is diesel. This is not a heated tank. There's no distillation taps. All it is a contained space. It is a custom tank. Just let me add that. I'm adding jet fuel, and look what it's doing. It's starting to turn all that into oil. Shut that off. Close enough. You notice it's just sitting and converting it because it's not a heated tank. It's not a heated volume. It's just straight up turning it. So if you spawn anything and you spawned it and you're finding a custom tank has oil in it, basically somehow, if you had jet fuel in it, it somehow got diesel in it. And if you had diesel, it somehow got jet fuel into it and turned it into oil. Yeah, I mean, you have to watch out for that. You need to be careful of that because and this is why your refineries, you may find oil in your diesel tank or oil in your jet tank. Somehow you got the opposite fuel in there and it got turned into oil. And the only way to get it out is you can put a distillation tap in there and you can pull it out with that, or any other method. Just beware. When you go to put this stuff together, you carry more than one fluid on the vehicle. If it mixes, it'll turn into oil and then become useless. And you'll have to separate it. You'll have to go distill it. You're going to have to do something. So you need to make sure you keep your oil properly heated during the entire process until you can pull that jet fuel and diesel out of the thing. Now, you're like, well, how do we do that? Well, you do that with the fractional ports, the distillation ports. I'm going to call them taps from here out, but this is what I'm referring to is the distillation ports. I call it a tap because you're tapping the fluid out. Kind of like, those taps they would put in trees for maple syrup. There's a lot of things, or like the tap in a keg to pull out for wine and such. Either way, the same idea. That's what I'm gonna call them. So the taps, these ports, at certain heights based in relationship to that tank, into that compartment of your tank. I keep saying compartments because you can have a big tank. Like this structure right here is 3 compartments. The square one in the middle, then there's the upper part, which starts about right there at the bottom of that green area, because that's the tap. And then the rest is all is another tank. So the center is that tank, upper tank, and down here. And that's how I have it built. Because under the time, I didn't realize what the compartments did for each other. Now, so example, when you go to put these in, they will tell you what they withdraw. So here, and I showed this in my rig video for the other, my update video, it will show you what you're going to collect from it. You have to have something hooked up to it to create a pipe network in order for it to show you. So you can at least just put an anchor on it, and then it will show you what you want to find out, and then you can fix it. So this one is oil. Basically, somebody told me if you were to stack them on top of each other, I'll need to show you in the build editor, that as you go up, number 12 is jet fuel. And that's how I built this. So we come up here, and the last one, it just says jet fuel. Now, when I had built this, like I said, I thought that it would separate all the fuel above a certain height, all the oil above a certain height would become jet fuel. That's how I built this. And it turned out that was wrong. But you did need to give it the height as a tank for it to count. So overall, the simplest design you can make is just a tank that is that's just a single tank, just big enough to go around the distillation ports, and from the bottom up, putting a tap at the top for the jet, and putting one near the middle for the diesel, and one at the bottom for oil. I'll get into why you would want one for oil in a moment. And with that, you can pull those 3 fluids from the tank, from the compartment that they're attached to, and send them wherever you need to send them. They're basically a filter. They're a pre-programmed filter. They replace the fluid filter that had all the selections, and they just changed what they did, and they replace them with these, and these guys will pull that particular fluid out of the thing. So let's see, what's next on this? Oh yeah, let me show you what I was talking about with the, so I said 12 things, right? So if we go into here, and let's just make this pink. And say we go, here's 0, or 1. It's being difficult. And we just build them up to here. This manner. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and number 11 up will be jet fuel. So between the first two are oil. So between 1 and 6 is oil. In between all the way up to, or tap 1 and 2 when stacked like this is oil. From 3 to 10 is diesel. And from there up is jet fuel. This is a pretty tall tank, so I don't see people building bigger than this too often, but there will be a need at some point. Okay, so that's the basic process. You're heating up a tank, you're heating up a compartment, you've got it full of oil, you heat it up to 300, it splits into jet and diesel. So for every 2 liters of oil, you get 1 liter of jet fuel, 1 liter of diesel. So it's equal ratio from 2 liters. So 1 to 1. Now we have this. Okay, here's the next thing. Small versus big. As you see, this is a big tank. Technically, this is 3 tanks, or 3 compartments in 1 tank. As I mentioned before, 1 tank, 2 tank, 3 tank. Now, the 3rd tank, this big one, is at least twice the capacity of this one. One of your biggest factors to the speed of a tank heating up. One is the number of furnaces. As you can see, this has a lot of electric furnaces on it. It works. You can stack them end on end, furnaces like this, end on end, and you will process and you get through. I've had up to 40 furnaces. All just stacked between here and here. It worked. But it was crap. It took like 30 minutes to even... I was guessing it's 30 minutes. I just gave up after 10. So I went through and I was trying to figure it out. What's the biggest problem? Well, first of all, to get get your distilling done quickly, you need flow. Your flow speed needs to be good. I would say a decent speed is anywhere from 40 to 60. Other people would say 175. Look, 40 to 60 will give you some good rates. And it'll get you some speed done. Now, if you just want to use the furnaces, the diesel furnace... so if we go in here, you can use, for heating, you can use the diesel furnace. You can use the electric furnace. And you can use the fireboxes for coal, because that was what one of the updates was, hotfixes was recently, is they were removing the coolant from the fireboxes so you can use them to also heat this facility. You can use all 3 of these. The idea is that you use some method of transferring the oil through these things, through the coolant ports. So in the case of here, where it says a coolant, you want to transfer the oil through there, and it will heat it up. Now, the electric one is probably the simplest to use. It's great for testing a setup. As you saw, I used a bunch of them over there. Because you turn on Infinite Electric, go down, test your setup, test your flows. It'll get things done. Now, when you go to do career or something like that, and you're going to be outside of creative play, and you want to do something that is more cost-minded, the diesel furnace is more where you want to go. It generates a lot of heat. It consumes very, very little diesel for the heat it gives you. So you can run it a long time, and it will allow you can actually use the diesel you generate to feed it. It'll give you the excess oil you have and all that. So this is an option you can do. Now, I did mention big versus small. Now, keep in mind, this big tank, I built it using electric heaters. I do not know, I am not sure on how well this would work on a thing like this. Now, this, what I'm about to say, is pure opinion on my part. I'm not saying it's fact or gospel, but I do want to keep in mind, as I've experimented with these big tanks, a lot of the people I've talked with, they all made small tanks. And when I mean small, I mean tiny. Like, even smaller than the prefab tanks, it feels like, looking at them. They just look like awkward. They heat really fast, but they also don't retain heat at all. You saw how long it took for this thing to lose heat when I turned it off. It was still decently fast, to be fair, but it still retained enough that if you turned everything back on, it would recover within a few minutes and get right back to business, distilling and stuff. So keep that in mind. Smaller tanks heat faster and, convert your oil faster. Not that the rate is faster, but, they get to the conversions faster. And I will actually show you an example of this. The top, when I had spawned this and started the process for you to watch, this red dial was actually for that smaller tank. I was kind of using it as a control versus this one to rate how fast or slower whatever setup I was testing was on this. Okay, so here's the next big thing about the tanks. So you decided you want to go for a big one or you want to go to a small one. Here's the next thing you worry about. The fluid flow. I know I touched on it a moment ago, but here's the thing. When you get big tanks, the verticality matters on your fluid flow. So let me turn this back on real quick. And you look through here, I have large pump city and some small pumps. Notice 55, 55, 50s, even up here, 50s. Ignore these were for a setup I'll show you in a minute. And if we go up here, '50s. Now, watch what happens. I'm going to remove one block from this build. One block. And watch the differences in these values. Just going to come in here, and I'm going to delete this block right here. Random block. Doesn't matter. So now these two tanks are as one. Spawn it in. We'll come over here. We turn on the heating system. Lo and behold, our pumping has effectively died. It has gone down by more than half just by deleting one block. And why that is because my setup originally, before I did that, the top of the tank was this floor right here. And I have all the ports going out here, the exit ports, right at the top of the tank. Whoops. And here at the bottom, the intakes are right here at the bottom. So I am pulling from the lowest point possible, because these are all inbound, and I am pushing the heated fluid out at the highest part. Has nothing to do with the mixture. It is just merely the exit point to allow for the fastest flow of the oil, so that it can heat this tank the fastest. And because now this was the roof, I punched the hole, these two compartments came together, and now this is actually the top of the tank. Now if I come up here, where these were at, when I looked earlier, these also said they were in the 50s and 60s. Yep, see? Still 56. They're still where they need to be. So keep in mind, when you go to create that stuff, that is going to affect your builds about their ability to heat. Alright, let's see. What else can affect the flow? So, you know, your placement within the compartment of the tank makes a difference. And this is true not just for heating. This is just in general. As you see, you can see the arrows from encased piping. That's leading from these intake ports. Those were meant to offload from a truck and into the bulk tank, which is what the middle one is. Again, verticality matters. Verticality matters. So, like I said, spit it out at the top, take it in from the bottom. You'll maintain the highest flow rate you can get. Oops. Let's see. Since I sealed that back up, now you can place the heaters on the interior. Just make sure you take care of all the proper supplies they need. So in the case of the electric, they don't need anything. They just need an entrance and exit port. But you get the diesels or the coals, they're going to need supplies. They're going to need air. They're going to need exhaust. They're going to need their fuel supply. So make sure they get fed them. Okay. I guess that should cover most of the basics. If you start finding yourself to having a low flow, like in 27 or 30 range, try adding a pump. First, try moving it closer to the top of the tank. And then, if that improves it, but still not a lot, then add a pump in the middle of the pipe travel and see where that leads it. So if you have a device in the middle of it, like see right here, this was a test setup. So I go and delete these, and I just put this back right here. We'll go activate the heaters again. (6/6, 27). All I did was change out the pumps. Sometimes all you need is just a little extra boost. You can use the small pumps. Small pumps are fine if you just are trying to increase the flow. If you're trying to get real pressure, the big ones are better. But in this case, I'm just trying to get the flow going, so the small ones are fine, and they'll boost it up to what I need. I'm trying to take a look and make sure there's nothing I'm forgetting. Yeah, okay. So, I'm pretty much done with this rig. About showing you the difference here. I'm going to go to one that has a much smaller tank and is a bit more complex design, trying to use tricks of the trade with building techniques to take advantage of the system. So I've got out here, out of this facility, this is just a refinery. It is not meant to pump oil. The well hasn't even been used. All I did was I just built it here because I wanted to use the structure. That's all it was. So you can see, it's nothing really impressive. I was going to make... This was supposed to be a career use, so I kind of kept it in that within mind. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a storage tank for diesel. We have a storage tank for jet, which can be noted by the fact that pipes are leading from where they're leading. I have 2 external taps. No, 3 technically, because I have an oil one here. Now, you remember what was said earlier was like, hey, why do you need one to collect oil? I'm now going to show you why. What you can do and why having one for oil is useful. Alright, so let's take a look at the interior of this. First of all, I have 2 fluid meters that you can access from the outside. You see it has a tank that's about 9,600 liters here. And then there's a storage tank, a bulk tank above it that is 52,000. This is my heating tank. Its sole purpose is to turn the oil into jet fuel and diesel. This is my storage. Now, and up there was going to be the connection ports for the input. Because, like I said, this one's not pumping oil, it's just receiving it. And then it turns it into jet fuel and diesel, which then it can be offloaded. Now, let's take a look at the interior. First thing you're going to notice, there's glass up against the ports. The distillation ports. Now, here is the fun example of these distillation ports. As long as the space at the tip, as long as the block that's up against it has room to receive fluid in that voxel, it will take oil from there. So, or it will take whatever it's distilling from that port. So how can I put this a little bit easier to show? Let me go back outside. And we'll go look at the bench. Okay, so we got everything here. Come inside and take a good look. You notice I have one here. I have the same setup there. Now, so you see, we grab one of these, and let me just put it on the wall here. This flat area right here. On this spot. That's where it's drawn in from. So you can have that placed up against the glass as long as that spot is clear and is able to receive, or it has a block there that is able to receive fluid within the rest of that voxel. So if we grab, say like, oh, give me a second. Camera's not being... So if we did this, and we put that voxel right there, that would not work. Okay, well, how about we switch it for a wedge? As far as I've understood it, yes, that works. Or a glass panel. Yes, that works. Because there's an open space where fluid could occupy. That's the best way to describe it as it was explained to me. So keep that in mind when you go to place it, that's where you can do that. Now you're like, hey, so why do you have a second compartment here? Well, actually I have 4 compartments here. The 2 main compartments, like I said, is the heating one, this heating tank down here, and then I am using the custom doors to create a second area. This area holds the bulk storage of oil, the unheated oil. Not that it doesn't get heated, but you're like, wait, wouldn't it cool down? Nope. The heating takes place in this tank. That is the tank it watches. That is the tank that matters. This is the one that will turn it to oil into jet and diesel. Now, as trying to maintain that heat, though, I still need to transfer it so that these distillery taps can get a hold of it. But I have to build off a base of this tank that has been bordered out because of the store. So this actually has to go up. I originally made space for 12, came up short. It was diesel, as you can tell here. So I had extended up higher to take that for account. And they can just pull straight from this, which is also its own sealed tank. It's like, wait, what's its purpose? Well, if you notice down here, without breaching this tank with that fluid so that it doesn't cool down, I'm using a pipe pulling from low sending it high, and dropping it into this tank right here. It is heated oil. It's already been distilled, but it also pulls oil. It pulls all of them from that heated tank down below and drops it into this compartment, which is surrounded by the storage oil, or all the oil that's being stored. As it comes down and fills here, it doesn't have to actually make contact with the taps. It just has to be in the tank. The taps pull it from the compartment of the tank. It's a filter. That's all it is. It's just a filter pulling it out. So, as I said, this down here, as it's heating, is a mixture of jet fuel, diesel, and oil. Well, like, if you're pumping it, that means you're getting oil into that mix, so it'll get into your tank here that the distillery taps will pull from. Correct. Oil is in there. But here's the cool thing. Here's why I still need the oil tap. Because the oil is now in this tank, guess what? The oil tap is pulling the oil out, and it feeds it into this small tank right here, which then gets pulled out by this and gets put back in the heating tank. It's already heated. It retains its temperature. I have watched, because there's a fluid meter right there, I've watched it's literally a split inside that tank and then into oil and jet fuel, or into diesel and jet fuel, and then is cooled down because there's no heat source to that tank and turned back into oil. And at some point, it all gets eventually pulled out and pushed into this tank via this pump. Now, this is... So you can get all these crazy designs to feature for distilling. Somebody I know, they literally, all they have for their heating is just this glass compartment. They just have a 1x1 tower, and they put oil in here and heat this. And the taps take it out because it's so fast. And it's legitimate. You can do it. It just has to be heated, and it just has to be touching the tank. I do this for aesthetics and just want the bulk storage. And as the fluid in here gets pulled out, sent through here, the taps then send it out into the bulk tanks for storage for jet and, jet and diesel. It removes it from the heating tank, which then this sends oil through the gap created by the open door of the custom door, and it refills this tank. Now, what this does do, it does cool the tank. When you add cold oil to a heated oil tank, it cools it down, so thus you need the heating source to keep it going. Now, I'm gonna show you how I'm getting this to stay heated. So let me just respawn this real quick. I'm also going to add infinite resources, because there's something else I'm going to show a little later. I got one more thing to show after this, after I talk about what's going on here. So for a heating setup, now the thing is, like I said, small tanks don't require as much to heat. So far, this is all I have, is 2 power sources. I'm using a heat exchanger to help with the heating of the fluid. Now here's the interesting thing. As you can see, it's at ambient temperature right now. When I go to turn on the system, as you notice, the furnaces heat up. And what I'm doing here with 2 furnaces, this one heats the oil to a temperature, then it comes back here, gets boosted on that heat again, then it takes that heat through the exchanger, and that's where you have your high side, but the high side is getting changed out by the temperature there. The temperature you're seeing from my own personal research, and this is my opinion, I will admit, is that's what the temperature of the fluid exiting. So the 208 is how hot the oil is exiting the exchanger. 59 is how hot it is exiting here, going into the furnace, goes through and it comes back out. And you see, it is going to slowly heat the system. And it's going to take a bit of time. So, give me a moment. And once it does, I'll be right back. Okay, so we hit 300. I just got back to my PC with that. Okay, so as you can see, the diesel is starting to split. Now, I was using the exchanger as a preheater. So as you can see, it comes in a little bit cooler, but it comes across the top and heats up. The thing is, with the system, the reason why I like it, it makes it harder at the beginning, but I think it helps keep the temperature stable later on. And as you can see, it's doing its thing. Now, if we come down here, remember that small compartment where it's pulling out oil? This is where it's dumping it. And as you can see, it's doing its thing. Now, it doesn't... Here it's full, so it's waiting for some of the jet fuel and such to get processed through. And as you can see, it's getting thrown into the tanks. And as this gets processed... Now, because you have the oil coming down in this scenario into the other tank, it cools it down. So it can sometimes turn that, the diesel and jet back into oil because it's cooling it down past the temperature. But this gets it right back up there. And that's the whole point of that. That's where that lower temperature is coming from, is because that oil that's from above is coming down, and it's cooling down the oil that is in the thing. So this is just keeping it heated up. So yeah, this is pretty straightforward. But taking advantage of the different compartments that you can create in Stormworks to create boundaries and heating areas separate from each other. And no matter what, this area could completely... sorry. This cooking tank can turn in completely into just diesel and jet fuel, and it will sit there. It won't mix in with this because this tank is full. So this oil won't transfer over here until some of this moves out. And the thing is I have this set up slightly automated so that based on the contents of this tank, it moves the contents from that tank and this tank into this tank. But it won't add from the heating tank, into this one until X amount of this is gone, so. Shit. Ah, I got lost. Okay, but, so, as you can see, the refining process is very interesting, and there's a lot of different ways. And I want to reiterate, because the big thing is flow, because the more you can get through the heaters, the more efficient you're being about how much you're heating at any given time. And multiple heaters can help, but you can't go whole hog. Like, adding 5 heaters on the same line of oil, I don't think has a lot of benefit. Now, if you're pulling a lot of really cold oil and bringing out a lot of hot oil into the tank, it will help on the beginning part, but it won't help as much on the back end when one heater can do the job just as well. So keep that in mind. That's more just personal preference, thinking about it. Now, I have one other thing to show you. Last thing, and this one might make what I just showed you kind of pointless too, to be honest. Give me a moment. I gotta pull this monstrosity back out. Okay, say hello to this monstrosity. The mobile refinery. Now, the reason why this may make the other things completely, not like useless or pointless, but not as significant. Because, well, the refining process happens inside a contained tank, no matter what. So, let's just heat this up and I'll show you what the big deal is. However, Okay, we are back, and yeah, it is currently converting fluid over. As you see, it had like 57,000 oil in it. I was using a spawner off the workshop to that somebody XML edited. It's on the workshop. You can find it. Just look up oil spawner, and you can put it in there so you can test systems and such as refineries like this. So what I'm doing is I'm literally refining the oil inside this tanker truck. And what makes this so interesting is that if you were doing career mode and you literally just have a truck or whatever full of oil processing your materials, your oil ahead of time, you can just return it back to the workbench and it will store it over here. Because as you see, I've done it before. That's how I test it. I know it works. That was 2,000 plus 1,700 that's on this truck. The truck has 1,700 in it right now when I spawned it from infinite resources. When you have infinite resources on, your resources don't go down. They don't go up. They don't go down either. So it just gives you the stuff. I think you also need auto refuel on for this to work. So you need infinite resources off, and which is most careers, and you need auto refuel, which most careers should have on. Most. There can be circumstances. Now there is one small problem with this setup. One small problem, because you got these heaters that are like 400 degrees. Let me get in the truck and I can show you the problem. Let me pop the hood. I know this isn't typically how these trucks have their hoods, but it is what it is. I'm looking at the engine here, and you notice its temperature? It's not running. It's literally just sitting here doing nothing. It already has an ambient temperature of 88 degrees. So there's kind of a danger of doing this. Even the radiator is at 79 degrees. So these things have a danger of overheating your engines using like these setups. So electric vehicles would probably be a better idea for doing the set. Now the other thing is you can literally just get to the destination. You could use like electric heaters, and then possibly, I haven't actually tested to see if it would be sustained, but you just hook it to here, and that could power the electric heaters. But like I said, this is all about your size of your tank makes a difference. The orientation of your tank will make a difference. Because a vertical tank requires the exit ports to be at the top. And that's the other thing, and I showed this before. Let me refer this real quick. Hold on. So let me show you this, I guess, so you can see it for yourself. So you see, 10,684. And this has 25, we'll say 2,500. We'll get to 26. And then we return it. $5,000. 15. 10 from 15. So that's like a 5,000 difference. Minus the 1,700 from the truck. Because it was what, 10,996 or something like that? $10,600? Yeah. So we're at 15,000 minus the 10,600. That's 4,400 minus 1,700 for the truck. That's 2,700. We had a little extra somewhere in the system, but yeah, that's that. Yeah. That was 2,700. That was so you can turn it back, and you don't even have to offload it. You literally can make a mobile refinery in career mode, load it up, take it somewhere. You could take it back to a base, plug it in, let it refine, or just give it a small amount of diesel and let it refine while you go get more oil. Make sure you keep a keep active block on it to keep it ready. And you can just use this. Now, the other thing I want to come up with and talk about this, because it's not a big, a little bit interesting. I don't feel like doing a whole video on it, but I want to mention it. Is prices for stuff. So if you look here on the map, here, this is the refinery. As it stands right now, I can sell oil for 5.73. I can buy diesel for 0.17 and buy jet fuel, I think that's 0.71. The reason why I showed you what before is you can take that tank, bring it to here, put the diesel and the jet fuel gantries into that tank, and then put an output onto the oil gantry. And you can buy the jet fuel and diesel, let it mix into oil, and then sell it on the oil gantry. But the problem with that is you could do that for a little bit. The thing is, they introduced surge pricing on the resources. And just watch what happens. Stupid enemy ships. I was shown this. It should do it here. So it says what? 17.9. That was just pressing the button to start the pump. Go, leave me alone. I'm busy. Here, let me disable weapons. So just simply activating the pump, taking fuel out, changes the price because it's being withdrawn. So it is manipulated on the moment. So you see, as you're taking more out, it goes up. So keep that in mind if you want to try doing something like it, because the other place that was a big noticeable was, I think it was the airport island. Yeah, here we go. As you can see, it's buying jet fuel for $6.01, but you can sell it for $6, but you can buy it for $1.60. So if you stretch it across, guess what? It's going to do the same thing. The moment you click the button to say, I want to do this, it's going to be like, oh look, price is going to go up. So the profit will go down. See, it just changes. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave there with that last little bit. So beware of the refineries. The overall summary is make sure you're watching your tanks. Make sure you watch your tanks. Make sure you have properly separated volumes. All you basically need is one contained space. You need the distillery taps in there. They work fine just by themselves. Just stick them in there. Make sure the jet fuel is at least your 11th tap up. Your diesel starts from the third one up, from 3 to 10, and your oil is on the bottom too. And this is relative to the bottom of that individual tank compartment. So if you have like 10 compartments, it's related to that individual compartment that they are in. Beware, they're also dynamic. I can actually show that real quick. I should show that. I showed it in my last video covering the parts, but I should go over it again just so you understand once more. Because if you go to do it on a ship, the rolling of the ship could affect it. Like if you were on a ship to mine or something, like, or carry something, the rolling of the ship would mess with it. Do I have... Ah, there it is. See, here was the distillery test that I had made. This was just to test the orientation of the parts, so you understood how it worked. As you can see, it wasn't built for me to get on actively. Because, like, this one says diesel. That one says diesel. I bring it down. Now they're saying oil. So it is dynamic based on the tank. There's a few other factors I haven't got a chance to test, but it could be an issue later on. So, yeah. It's a distillation tower now. Okay. So, yeah. Keep this all in mind. And, And I just hope you have a good time with everything. Hope you enjoy your refining process. Like I said, all you gotta do is heat a volume. Just beware, if it gets too cold, it converts it back into oil based on the rate, based on your quantities. You know, 2 to 1 or 1 to 1 to oil, and 1 to 1 from oil to there. So, yeah, that should be most of it. That should actually cover all of it. So, I hope you had a good time. If you enjoyed watch. If you did, like, subscribe, all that fun junk helps me out on the channel. And, yeah, this is Arcades, signing out. Have yourself a good day.